This is a podcast from Rover.
Welcome to Parents We've Met, where we chat about the mess and magic of parenting. Today on the couch, we have Leigh Hart, a New Zealand treasure. He's a businessman, a dad, a creator of laughs and entertainment, and the perfect beer and chip combo.
That's fantastic.
A New Zealand treasure?
I might need a copy of that when I leave.
I was talking with Jenny about this. We've had about 20 people we've chatted with, and I found putting your questions together the hardest because I got lost down a rabbit warren of all your videos. I was watching you and your Speedos giving out tickets. I was watching you race snails, watching you speed cook. And I just all of a sudden, I'm like, I feel like I've lost a few months, just like watching so many clips.
It is funny, people might pop up to you in the street or something and go, oh, I love this, I love that kind of thing, all very different things, which takes you right back. And you often find yourself going, you got to get out more, if that's what you're watching. No, but it's great. It is good. I mean, I think it means not so much, a lot of stuff you may have done right or not, but probably a lot of stuff that you haven't done too wrong, I suppose. I take that out of it. Because you are self-conscious of that you kind of stuffed up too bad, because it wouldn't be long before they took a treasure down a few pegs, I
mean, you have so many people probably coming up to you on the street wanting to chat, feeling like they know you. What's the thing that they most often talk about, that they remember, that comes up time and time again?
And to be honest, it's so varied and you can never predict it. You could get an elderly woman go on about Moon TV, and then you can get someone in their 20s now going on about the Hellers sort of thing. And you often try to predict. You see a young lady coming up and go, oh, yeah, this will probably be about some TV cool thing you've done, but it's not. It's about something mundane. You can't predict. And also, my problem is I'm terrible with faces and names anyway. So you've got someone coming up and they're about to say hello. There's a good chance you may actually know them anyway in New Zealand. And you've probably met them or you've met them in some proper sense. So you can't assume that they're just coming up as a fan. So you just assume that you do know them. You just assume you know everyone. And that's the safest way of going. Because if they don't know you from bar of soap, they go, great, well, he was really friendly. And if they do know you, they go, great, he remembered me.
Yeah, well played.
I've actually given that away now.
That's a great stance. Hey, Leigh, we're really interested to know a little bit about your role as a dad who's in your tribe. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I've got two kids. Sammy, 19, he's first year at university now. And Sophia, she's will be 17 very shortly. Year 12, who we've established. I was stuck on the third form, fourth form, fifth form, sixth form. Yep. So, I loved being a dad from day one. And I think in a strange kind of way, what I loved about it was almost what a lot of people perhaps found challenging about it. By that I mean, at the time when I first had Sammy, there was a lot of TV going, a lot of sort of manic sort of stuff. I was up late at night sort of editing, or I used to watch TV late at night anyway. So the lack of routine for me, I used to say to, and I could be wrong here because I think kids are all about routine, but parents who at that time who had little routine or all over the show seemed to manage better than parents who needed to be like this all the time because the kids won't allow that to happen. So between my wife and I didn't mind getting up late at night to do this feed or that feed kind of thing because I was up anyway. So it wasn't a big sort of thing of one of us having to sort of sacrifice. I mean, that's looking back now with rose-tinted glasses a little bit. And we have broken up since then. No, we have actually. But that was a lot later. So the early years I loved. And I do find myself all the time when I bump into, young parents, and I think cliches are cliches for a reason, and you find yourself doing that. Oh, make the most of it.
Yeah.
They grow up so fast. I'm definitely one of those people that says that. And I almost feel like I could do it all again.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that. But I almost feel as if I could. But again, as I say, this could be my memory playing tricks. But I certainly loved the whole experience from those early years, definitely.
Yeah.
What came naturally to you as a dad, Leigh? I know that being up late at night was a natural. What else might have?
I think parents, it helps to have a sense of humour. And I'm not talking about so-called professional sense of humour. That's a subjective thing at best. I'm just thinking you're not taking everything too seriously. You know, those moments of a baby spewing on you and stuff and all these sort of things. I mean, it's funny. It has to be. And finding the humour in all those sort of situations. And I might have got this from my father a little bit, as strict as he was in many sort of ways. He always had a good sense of humour and very good at sort of winding us up as kids. I think you've got to sort of actively wind kids up, you know, even when they're little, challenge their little brains, go, what does he really mean that? Or playing tricks on them, you know, just kind of totally have them second guessing, I think. You know, whereas Ange was certainly a lot more, you know, being a sort of the great mum kind of thing, which allowed me, I suppose, the space to be another cliche for those first few years, the fun dad, you know, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And that's what I enjoyed about it too, you know.
The fun certainly is what gets laid down in the memory bank of kids. My husband was a fun one with our kids, and when you ask them what do they remember, it's not sort of the lovely lunches I made or wallpaper
exactly.
in the room or anything like that. It's actually the silly way they were put to bed in the wrong bed.
Oh, totally. And yeah, if you do it right, you can have fun with everyone in the family too. Like, you know, take sides. Like, mum's coming home, but we're the A team. She's the I feel terrible now. I have to start thinking a bit more to say it. No, but like, you can really have fun with that kind of stuff. And of course, I think the reason why a dad maybe does that, because they know deep down that mum is the main, you know, in their eyes, mum's always going to be mum, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she, you know, she'd be grumpy, strict, whatever, but they need their mums, you know, they always do.
Yep.
So they've got that sewn up. So we have to sort of maybe sort of fight for a bit more sort of space and pretend to own it. You know, we don't begrudge that either. We think it's great. We all love our mums, and that's how it is. But that's sewn up, so we can, you know, we can try and have
find a
some fun
gap.
there.
It's a great gap to find.
Totally.
It's amazing though, like we've sat with a bunch of people on these couches, and for a lot of people that playfulness and coming back to that as a parent and being silly and not taking themselves too seriously, it actually is hard for a lot of parents.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Everyone's got different personalities, and you can't just sort of go, oh yeah, read a book. Oh, you should be really fun and playful with your kid, and you suddenly turn, you day by day, you're this character, that's your personality, and then you suddenly turn into like some sort of clown or stand-up comedian. You know, I don't think that's really possible. But I think children can bring the best out of, you know, what is there, reading the book with a slightly different voice than they'd normally have at work or during the day. Even that is, you know, getting into the role. You know.
Were there any areas of parenting that you found especially hard or you felt out of your depth?
Any areas I found out of my depth.
Or surprised you?
We sort of touched on it, the logistical stuff, the stuff like if we're going somewhere, getting all the stuff in the car. I hated all that sort of stuff. And I would find it overkill anyway, as all this sort of stuff, you know.
All the stuff.
And you hark back to when you were a kid, your parents, it seemed a lot simpler back then. But I'm sure someone was doing the workload, but they tended to be a little bit more hands-off than, say, my generation with our kids, which is not a good or bad thing. So any areas that I suppose, patience, that kind of thing. And that's just not with kids. That's with everything. It's like I probably would have lacked patience, I think. The detail stuff. I was never a detail person. And I think my wife definitely picked up the slack there. If we were both like me, it wouldn't have worked in that sense.
You just mentioned about you and your wife separating, and you've talked really openly about that in other podcasts and in the media. You guys have been a great team getting your kids to this point. What's it like now trying to parent on the same page but be in different homes?
It works pretty good, actually. And I think you can never speak for anyone else that's ever broken up with kids, because every situation is different. So like Rubik's Cubes, the age of the kids, how the parents were getting on, the circumstances for the breakup, the geography, everything would affect it in so many ways. In our case, 3 years ago, I suppose, so the kids were, I would like to think, old enough to know what was going on, obviously, and old enough to accept it and feel they were in control in a way. During the breakup, not that we got out of control or anything, but they were certainly the adults in the breakup, if you know what I mean. Because there's no way, as us being two adults in a breakup, that you can be totally adult the whole time.
Yeah.
Because there was always pressure. You're going to say something stupid. There's going to be something snarky. And there's a lot of stuff going on. But throughout the whole thing, they were mature enough and old enough to occasionally go, Dad, you didn't have to say that. That sort of thing, that, which would keep you in check. You'd suddenly go, yeah, dead right. To remind you that, because again, the cliches for a reason, the kids are the most important thing. Had we broken up when they were 6 or 7, the dynamics would have been totally different, because I, for one, would have been a lot more concerned about my role in the whole family dynamic now. Am I still as important? What if she meets another guy? They're old enough that this guy could always become second dad, kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
These, rightly or wrongly, the things that run through your head, I'd argue, if that was happening at that age, or if they were really young, 2 or 3, they would never know any different, I suppose, than the parents being separated. Whereas the age that happened with us, God, I don't want to be saying it was ideal age, because there's no ideal, but we handled it, I'd like to think, fairly well. There were moments, and from day one, the kids were week on, week off, pretty much. Other people were doing 2-3 days here, 4 carry the one, put the third back here the week. Honestly, I couldn't have managed that at best, regardless. And we wanted to keep it really simple for the kids with school, as simple as possible. And the fact that we got on well enough to be able to do all that sort of stuff, I think certainly helped, and they helped us sort of through it. But there were times. And if I could go as far as to say, if you ask them, they would prefer it this way. Right? I think there's more benefits for them as we are now than there would have been had we not broken up.
We chatted with Pio today last season, and he talked about, when going through hard things, the importance of surrounding yourself with people that have intelligent aroha. He talked about his boy dying and how people didn't know what to say and would sometimes be silent or just say the wrong thing. But he said, I really needed people around me that were intelligent with how they loved on me. Where did you go to for support?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and God forbid how you'd handle something like that. I was always kind of old school in the sense that, this is not my mess, but this is our mess, and only I can walk this walk, kind of thing, and which to a degree is probably true. You're going to have to sort it out. You're going to have to get your ducks in a row and get things fixed up. But surprisingly, it was other people who'd been through it, who were good mates, but people I hadn't really spent a lot of time with, or you sort of lost touch over the years with, because your close mates that you see every day, and they're still married, and that there was no shortage of advice coming from them, but it seemed to just go wash over your head, because it really just didn't resonate, and I couldn't say why it wasn't. I was saying the right things. Maybe it was just because they hadn't been through it, or they weren't going through it. It just didn't mean anything. Whereas all of a sudden people, and even acquaintances, they would say a certain thing, and it would just resonate. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean, or that's exactly what I'm thinking. So by default, I tended to get more out of just people who had been through it. I mean, I didn't seek people out that had been through it or things like that. But all of a sudden you find yourself in a pub and you go, oh, that's right, old Rich, he broke up a few years ago, didn't he? That's right. And you end up having a chat with him. So in a way, it opened up your sort of friendship group to other people you didn't think you had that much in common with. So you didn't really sort of keep those friendships, alive as much as you should. Even strangers who've been through it seem to make more sense than close friends who hadn't. And that's no disrespect to them, because they certainly tried, and they were certainly all there for you, and always will be.
I think the last few years they've been quite tough, on a lot of families. We've had lockdowns, we've had the cost of living, and I, even within my circle, have heard of a lot more people separating at the moment. For people that are in the thick of it, just starting that journey, what helped, or what would you say? Don't do that.
Well, initially I would say be damn sure, it won't be easy, and be very sure about it. Don't do it on a whim, that, or this kind of thing. And especially where kids are involved, and depending on their age, you get these situations, I'm sure, where you have a couple who are pretty much thinking, oh, this is not going that good, but we'll wait a couple of years till the kids get to this age, or that, that must go on. And on one hand, that makes sense to me. I think if you can put a brave face on and get the kids to this stage, and because you think that might be better for them, I think, why not? On the other hand, though, if you're in an environment between the two of you that's just not that good, best to rip that Band-Aid off now, kind of thing. I think, again, it depends on the kids, their age, their personalities, but within reason. My parents dragged me off overseas, since I was a 3-year-old, lived in different countries, and because that was Dad's work. And it was no sort of real thought to, what about their school friends that they've made, their 8, 9 years? Stuff it. Don't move on. We're off. We're a family unit. That's how it was. I think nowadays we can be a little bit guilty of maybe the other way around, pandering too much to the kids. Obviously, we have to look after them and that sort of stuff, but you can sometimes do more. Damage isn't the word, but I think resilience is there, and it can be sort of fostered as well. And back to the breakup thing, don't put them through hell or vice versa. Do the right thing, and they will respect you for it. And they'll come around, and they don't want to be in a house where, couples are fighting the whole time,
So those years that you spent a family as a youngster travelling around, what was that like? Was it riding llamas and?
Yeah. Yeah, well, literally, because we're in Peru for the bulk of a lot of that. So 5 years at the top of the Andes, 13,000 feet up, so higher than Mount Cook. We're a little school there, my brother and I, with these other kids ranging from 16-year-olds down to 10-year-olds. And so that was exciting. We're literally in the middle of nowhere. My father was building this huge sort of irrigation and sort of hydro scheme in the top of the Andes. So we were very much a tight-knit family. Only us four, I've got one other brother, went through that experience. And even to this day, my parents are in their 80s and that sort of thing. And we still look back on that time as our unique family experience. And no one will ever understand it. We can't, and we don't want them to. That was our thing. So we became very close like that. But we weren't the sort of, we were very close, but at the same time, we weren't a family like Dad wasn't the sort of huggy kind of father that I kind of was, you know what I mean? I don't remember him ever really sort of hugging us or anything like that. He was a big, staunch West Coast sort of miner type. But at the same time, I've got nothing but fond memories of he was very loving in other ways. Yeah. Back to that sense of humour thing, winding us up. Rather than giving us a hug, he would give us a horse bite or something physically, It's like, and I've told this story a couple of times, and I suppose I don't mind telling it as a parent. For example, this is back in the 70s, and obviously he grew up in the 40s and the 50s, so things were different then. But, we would get the strap on our hand sometimes. Mum was at her wit's end. Wait till your father gets home. That kind of thing. And between my brother and I, we must have really wound her up. And we'd go, oh, my God, okay. And we'd be watching for the car to be coming up the drive. We actually really, the whole afternoon was like this. And eventually he would come in and tired, and is Mum going to tell him? Has she said anything? And we're sort of greasing around the house. And next thing I know, he'd be in the bedroom and go, boys, son, go get the strap thing. It had this leather strap. And he didn't whack it. I think about it now. It was actually, I can't believe I'm saying this, but sort of done with love. He'd be listening to BBC radio so he could we'd have to come out there, and he would, just a couple on the hand each, and I was always pulling away, this kind of thing. And nowadays this would be on 7 sharp or something. Oh my God. It wasn't like that. It was actually quite, it meant they actually cared. And what do you do with two boys who are 7, 8, 9, really pushing the boundaries kind of thing, but I don't know. But the funniest time, I remember he called us in there, and this is an example of the sense of humour thing. And he said, go get the strap. We went, And we gave it to him, and he goes, all right, hands out. He gave us a couple of each. And I said, what's that for? What's that for? Well, I was thinking about it. This is for all the stuff that I haven't caught you for this week. But I know you've done something wrong, haven't you? And we both looked at each other and went, yeah, we're down. And then I went, that's not fair. And he goes, life's not fair. So that lesson I've never forgotten, and not because it came from a physical thing, and this is probably not what you want to hear on this podcast, but I'm putting that more in the category of their sense of humour, and there was no way in hell he was ever going to hurt us. There was no, child abuse in that sense. It was just a different times, and the way his brain worked, it was clever.
I still remember at primary school, the strap was there when I was at primary school. I was a bit cheeky. I never really got in trouble, but I do remember once going into the principal's office and finding the strap book and reading it. I was really curious. Like, I wonder who. And poor Miles, if you're listening, like, you were in there way too much, buddy. But
I still had it at high school. I had the caning record at school. So if you had a strange man able to whack your ass with a piece of cane, I think it was okay if my father hit me with the strap when I was a lot younger. And I remember I got, as I say, the caning record. I remember telling my father, must have been back from overseas, I got caned the other day, he gave me 6 strokes. Expecting my father, I suppose, to go, what? He went, did you deserve it? And I went, yeah, probably. So what are you telling me for? That kind of thing. So it was like, but I never felt the need to do that with my kids, if you know what I mean. Not even in the humorous sense. It just didn't sort of really cross my mind. I wasn't going, oh, my dad did this, so I'm going to do it. Well, there wasn't any sense of that. His thing was unique. So yeah.
We learn a heap of emotions from our parents, even if they aren't spoken about. Did you find that growing up that you were allowed to have a range of emotions? Were they ever talked about?
Certainly we were allowed to have them. I remember always having a lot of emotions and stuff. I don't recall talking about it a lot, to be honest. I might lay down on the couch. How's your father? What's your relationship with him?
We're going to show you some pictures. How do you feel when you see this?
What do you see here? This whole session's just gone into a twist. Yeah, no, I think we were certainly a family that could express our emotions, and we talked about stuff. There's a lot of empathy, I think, in the family for other people and stuff. And up there, and there's sort of the locals, very sort of poor and stuff. And there was a lot of, I think, it was hands-on, if that makes any sense. Like, you got to learn about a lot of sort of different sort of emotions by sort of seeing it firsthand. Seeing the state of the country in Peru, then the poor people, the lepers in the street, this sort of stuff. Yeah. No, it was a interesting, and still are a very sort of close family in that sense.
I heard that you went to boarding school when you were about 11 and you didn't see your parents for that year. And I'm a softie. I actually cried.
Yeah.
But, it may have been great for you. You may have had a fun time.
It could have gone either way. And this is the whole point. This is whether there was no right or wrong to the whole thing. If it didn't work, it would have been wrong. There was a bit of pressure on my brother and I because we knew that, Dad, if he, because we couldn't stay in that school up in the top of the Andes forever, we had to get some sort of education. So, we'll send them back to New Zealand to boarding school. Where? It could have been anywhere, but it was Christchurch because they had an aunt and uncle there. So they just randomly found boarding schools almost through a lawyer or through the paper or something. So there's no history of family going there or anything. So we were just put in there, and I remember Mum dropping us off that first night. And there was this moment, honestly, it was like, all the parents, all the mums mainly, and all these kids getting dropped off. And the school's got at some stage got a time kind of, there's a bell rings and all the mums have to leave and they're pulling them off. It's like this ridiculous thing where they drag these mums out and they're all crying, and and then you see your mum crying, so you start crying, and I remember each day I had this little calendar, and because I was going to see them in a year or something, so I was each day taking off like this, But my brother was 2 years older, he was there as well, so there was this slight pressure on us that And they never put it on us. They never said this to us. But I think we both knew if we didn't make this work, he would have to quit his job there, move back to New Zealand, get sort of some mundane job somewhere. He was at the peak of his career. He was traveling the world. He was getting promoted, and he was very good at this tunneling work he was doing. So I think we kind of knew that. So we sort of made it work, but it was bloody tough. I mean, it was a weird, I didn't even know what a rugby was. I didn't know what cricket was. I didn't know what anything was, anything about New Zealand. And we were like these weird kids with these weird accents, and you get teased, not like any other kid, I suppose. But we just said, stuff, we just got to make it work. And then Christ College after that was kind of similar sort of thing, but at least we'd sort of got a bit older then, and that school was all more well known for its bullying and all that sort of stuff, so that was another sort of whole challenge. But again, I think we both decided, look, we'll make it work. But there was a lot of kids there whose parents weren't even overseas, probably more so farmers, kids and that, people just out of town, and they were fighting it from day one, running away and that sort of stuff. And I don't think we had that luxury in a way. We had nowhere to run to, if that made any sense. We literally couldn't. We're going to jump on a plane. And, so I remember counting the days down, and then the headmaster said, Hart? I said, yep. Can you come down to the foyer, please? We've got something, And this is about a week before my parents were supposed to get back. And I remember walking down, and they were there. They'd come, they'd come back a week early for some reason. I was like, because you'd be psyched up for these sort of days. And I remember the headmaster going, okay, you're allowed to go out for dinner with them tonight, but have them back here by 9 or something. I just think back now going, what the hell? You let me have a night? I was like, just so staunch when I think about it.
I think I would have, my husband, I'd be like, see you in a year, babe.
Yeah.
I'm staying in New Zealand. Like, you count the days down.
It's funny. But to go full circle with that, again, there's been no reason for it, and that's probably why I haven't. But I've never thought about sending my kids to boarding school this whole time, because I don't want to miss out a day of their growing up. And this is coming from a selfish point now. I think it was great for my brother and I. I thought we benefited a lot out of it. The real victims, I think, were actually mum and dad, I think. They never had any of the pre-ball set up. They never came to one sports day. They never really met any of my friends until after the fact, after I sort of left school, really. If there was a reason that I'd send them to boarding school, for example, if they had a legitimate reason, and you can have a 1,000 different reasons for it, I'd certainly do it. I've got nothing against it, and it was fine for me. And that's someone who went through the roughly. I loved it. I sort of almost got off on the POW aspect of the whole thing. And that was fine for me. But on a selfish level, if they wanted to, at one stage, Sammy may even mentioned going to Christchurch. Well, I don't know, maybe a friend of his was thinking about it or something. I wouldn't have wanted them to go, because I wanted to keep them close, because I wasn't kept close. But it doesn't have to go like that each generation. But sometimes we wind mum up, because I know she's got like complex. Sometimes I go, when you abandoned us, and she'll suddenly go, no. But I know there's moments that she feels, as I say, those years we mentioned earlier, they grow up so fast you can't get them back, let alone only seeing them, they're that height, and then the next time you see them, they're that height. And the next time he's got stubble. It's a big changes. So, we sort of grew up, literally apart from them, but our growing up, the challenges that a lot of parents would have had with kids, right down to puberty and everything, they kind of just missed out on. They just got the new version sent to them each 6 months. This is here. There's the upgrade. There's the upgrade. It's actually worse than what it was before.
What about now with having grandkids? Have they been more involved?
Oh yeah, they love the grandkids. Like, this is the thing now. They can't get involved enough, and I think that's a natural grandparent thing to have. I think all grandparents feel that way. But I've never thought of that before, actually. I wonder if they're almost trying to overcompensate, certainly mum's case as well, that yeah, should have them live with them if they could.
That's lovely. I was watching, you did some shows in lockdown and you had your kids involved, which looked pretty fun. Were they keen on the project as well?
No. This is where you actually saw a selfish side of them, actually. The first lockdown I loved as a family. We actually broke up during the second one. It's a bit of a blur, but the first one was great. We've got a place up in north, up in Mangawai there, and it was amazing because once we knew we were all getting locked in there, and I sort of love that sort of family unity kind of thing. You've got everyone to yourself, and you're not getting distracted with your mates, and they're not getting with their friends, because the chance of getting the four of you in the same room to even just, especially with the devices and everything, is pretty impossible. So that was forced upon us, but I really embraced the first one. And knowing it was happening, I got in touch with TVZ and said, look, I have to try and keep busy. What if I sort of re-edit a whole lot of old footage but package it as us up in lockdown? And they said, yep, okay. So, but to do that, I obviously had to get the kids on board to film it because we couldn't get any crew in there. And, on one hand, it came across really well because, God, they were good actors. They were looking really disgruntled teenagers having to do this. And I go, they actually were like this. And it wasn't just that. I'd have to film the whole thing on an iPhone with sound and that. And I'd have to direct a lot more because obviously Sammy's not a cameraman, normally. So I found myself doing a lot of that, ranting, talking, no, back, And then, of course, it has to get edited. And my editor was locked down here in Auckland. So we'd have to send the footage to him every day over the bloody internet. And the kids are on the internet trying to watch movies and this sort of stuff. And, every logistical aspect of it was an absolute nightmare. Dad, why can't I do it? Okay. We just get this one shot. All right. Okay, got it. It was honestly like that. I probably blew up at one point. Said, guys, this is what we do. This is a job. This is what's paying the bills here.
Were they getting paid?
You know what?
Work experience.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, in a roundabout way, they definitely were. But I actually should have made that more of a thing because maybe they would have
more buy-in.
Yeah, a bit more buy-in. But then again, that would have been too easy. They should have to get paid for everything they do. But no, it was real fun. And now I think when they saw the finished thing, they sort of see themselves on there. And it's one of those weird things too, where you've actually got a record of them at this age, at this height, and they're actually on camera as opposed to just a whole lot of Instagram stuff. It's actually something contained you can store away and say that was that year, that's who we were. It was real fun.
Yeah. I find my kids sometimes they can be a bit of a tough crowd because I think kids, they can either be your biggest cheerleaders or your toughest critics. I mean, do they find you funny? Do they look at your stuff and go, oh, that's hilarious, Dad? Or they're like, what's going on here? What are you up to?
Again, it's the age thing. I think for years, I'm pretty sure they didn't have a clue what I do, much like myself. But it's only now that they're realizing, oh, this is what you did 20 years ago kind of thing. This is what that guy on the street was talking about. Unless they go onto YouTube, they don't really sort of find it. They've seen a few recent sort of TV things. So they've got a lot better idea now. But it's almost a second wave kind of thing, almost a retro aspect to it. Yeah.
Who makes you laugh? Who do you find funny?
Well, kids, actually. They've both got great sense of humours. And I don't want to say especially Sophia, because Sammy might be watching this, but she's certainly got some sort of comic timing about it, and very funny, and she's very aware. So she certainly does. My father does. My brother does, and not for the reasons that you'd normally think. I don't normally follow stand-up comedians or anything like that. I don't watch a lot of stand-up comedy, but in the comedian sense, I used to love a lot of the old sort of British stuff. Sort of Monty Python kind of thing, but very dry sort of humour, I think, stuff that's not supposed to be funny and sort of tragic, really.
I have a 7-year-old and an almost 5-year-old, and I'm still firmly planted in their social lives. Like they have no choice. I'm there. I'm driving you. I'm part of it. How are you finding as your kids are getting older and they're making plans in the weekend and maybe Dad's not in the mix as much?
Yeah, I think for a while there, they don't really want me in it. It's that sort of embarrassing dad stuff, I suppose, But it's kind of funny now. Sammy's at university now. He's less embarrassed now, even from the work stuff. Sometimes I can tell that they're almost kind of proud as well. Maybe someone's mentioned something at university and he's going, oh, yeah. I'd argue that they'd probably talk different about me when I'm not there than when I'm there. But you get these balls and stuff now and pre-balls and, you know, am I allowed to come? Yeah, you can come, Dad, but not to the post-ball and the pre-ball. You know, this kind of stuff. It's all very, you know, and that kind of thing too, I think, because they've got enough to worry about. They're nervous about how they look and their boyfriend or the girlfriend or their other friends. They're self-conscious about everything. Last thing they need is, oh, God, how's Dad going to be? What's Mum going to do? You're better off not going at all, I think.
Thinking of you as a businessman now, I'm wondering, was it being involved in the Hellers ads that got you thinking about creating your own products? Is that how it kicked off?
No, the beauty of the Hellers stuff in the TV sense, because I was really, do I do this, you know, selling out to do ads? Well, I was supposed to be doing this rock and roll comedy TV kind of stuff. But ironically, it was exactly what I needed to do because it took a bit of pressure off and I didn't have to do every half-baked show that TVNZ would ring up with on the phone and go, hey, you're going to put, and I'd go, nah, I don't want to do that. Whereas if I didn't have the Hellers stuff, maybe I would have found myself doing that. I found myself making quite staunch decisions on what I wanted to make. It was normally just something I would make myself. It was more of a case later on. I was doing TV shows like Moon TV and these random late night comedy shows that TV2 had put on at 11:30 and midnight and stuff. And you know, and I'd get really angry about it. But then you'd find yourself going to the Wellington Sevens, places like this, and all these people in the crowd, thousands of them, are dressed up in like Speedo Cop uniforms, all the characters from the show.
Yeah.
And I'd go, and I'd be down there doing some role at the Sevens or something for someone, Lion Brews or something. And on one hand, it would be really inspiring. Go, this is fantastic. This is working. And then you'd almost get quite annoyed about it because why hasn't TVNZ seen this? Why aren't they seeing what I'm seeing? And why can't they realize that it is working and then bring it on a bit earlier on and get behind it more and actually, you know, support the show more in every sense, financially and, you know. So I started thinking, okay, at the moment we make a TV show, it'll take us 4 months to make it. It'll go on, then we'll apply for funding for another one. It'll take another 4 months to make it. TVNZ will part around, it won't be on, they'll put it off another few months. You'll have to be on once a year. So I was trying to think, how can you carry that energy on that I'm seeing at the Sevens from all these so-called fans from one gig to the other, you know, because it's a long time between drinks in a way. So, you know, what do? Do I put out a weekly newspaper with silly comedy in it? Do I do, back then probably could have done a website? Or is it something else? Is it merchandise or something like that? So I suddenly thought, well, shit, why not do a beer brand? You know, that'll be constant. It'll be out the whole time and people associate it will help, you know. So I just on a whim really started the beer brand and it kind of took off a little bit. So there was no financial goal to it, you know. Then long story short, the beer got sort of complicated and I kind of morphed into the potato chips more than that, which was a lot easier and I kind of felt better about it in a way. It's less... the beer or alcohol, and it's just such a... I'm a lot more comfortable selling product in the supermarket that everyone can enjoy and it doesn't have any weird association with it. But no, it was never a financial thing. It was purely, let's keep this energy going in a tangible way, you know, so people can still see it. We can do social media videos for the chips or the beer, keep the comedy out that way, as opposed to having to make a whole TV show every 3 months, which we couldn't have done with the amount of support we were getting. So that's the goal behind it. The Hellers stuff actually, that had nothing to do with it, because that's very easy because they just sort of pay me to do it. Whereas the other stuff, it's my disaster. You know, it's my mess or otherwise, you know. But yeah, it was...
it's everywhere.
But they've been very supportive though. Hellers been great.
Yeah, it looks like it's doing so well though. I mean, you see it everywhere. And
Yeah, no, it's good. And again, it all feeds back into itself. You know, you can use that to sort of maybe sponsor your own projects. So it's a bit of a snowball kind of thing and vice versa. Whether you could do this 15, 20 years ago before social media was such a big thing, I'm not so sure. But, I mean, potato chips have been around forever. You know.
What's next on the lead dream board? You've got is there another product you're bringing out or thinking about?
Yeah, well, I just spent 6 weeks overseas thinking about that, and I've come up with nothing.
We're about to get an exclusive, and I'm going to do. I'm not sure.
Wow. No, I went off to find myself pretty much. So I lost myself, found myself, and now I've lost myself again, I think. No, I think, the chips are going great. They're getting into Australia and stuff now as well. So we'll just keep expanding that. And the thing now is I still want to be making TV shows that I really want to make. And it's feeling like you really need to have to want to make it nowadays because TV is so fragmented, so many people won't see it anyway. The amount of people that come up to you just after you've had a TV show on and they go, hey, when are you going to do another TV show? You go, well, I just had one on last week. And they go, well, I only watch stuff online. And then you just bring something out online and someone who only watches stuff on TV says, when are you going to do another, go, look, you've got to do both. So I think travel shows I quite like, doing sort of travel. It's quite self-indulgent, but that's the beauty of it. You get it done and you've got a finite, you tend to start here, finish there. So, yeah, I think I'll just keep making TV shows like that, I think.
I feel like I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't give you the opportunity. Having a parent coach here, is there anything you want to throw at her? I mean, it seems like you've got all the parenting covered, but there is that option.
I prefer just to plug some products if I could.
Would you like to? No. If you want to be a great parent, what you need to eat is.
No, what I would ask is, so I mentioned going back, parents that were breaking up. And so imagine I'm asking on behalf of someone for this first question, because I'm really happy that we didn't break up when they were 6 or 7. Especially from a father's perspective, they probably do feel that lack of confidence. As I say, I think kids look to their mum as the alpha parent, whether they like it or not, in a way, you know what I mean? A lot of dads might overcompensate or try too hard to be relevant in those kids' life. Do they just get on with it and be themselves? A lot of dads must feel they're going to get replaced, I suppose, would be the best way of putting it.
Yeah, I do.
Or a fear of that, anyway.
Yeah, I do hear dads particularly feeling like they've got to compensate to perhaps get in.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do that sort of being Disneyland dad and kind of overshooting with the indulgences. Yeah. And I think what I'd say is be yourself and know that your presence and you're watching them on the sideline, chatting to them, being there and around their activities, reading to them, stuff like that. It doesn't actually have to go into a realm of competitive parenting.
Yeah,
actually,
that could easily happen.
Yeah, and you see it happening where parents are afraid that they're not enough for their kids. And I'm telling parents, you are. Just be yourself and show up and talk to them and sit on the end of their bed. Find the way, especially as they get into teenagers, find the way that they'll sort of let you communicate. Yeah. And it might be that it's really late at night when they come home, or it might be really inconvenient for you. But you don't actually have to do things that necessarily cost a lot of money. So I would say avoid the competition and show up. Your kids are actually very good discerners. Kids know when either parent cares and loves for them, and that's what they need. What would you hope, you and Ange have instilled values and dreams in your kids, what would you hope to see as they're ready to sort of be launched into the world? What would they have from how you've raised them?
Yeah, good question. I think a little bit of common sense, maybe, which is always good going forward. I mean, that's a very broad thing to say, but I really do think it hopefully is this. It's the empathy I mentioned before. They both got it. They both care about other people. And no matter what you do, whatever job you end up doing, whether it's here, overseas, traveling, whatever, you've got to have that, I think. Otherwise you're just in it for yourself entirely. And I remember, this sounds like I'm making things up now, but I remember every day in Mount Eden Primary when I used to do the walking school bus and take them up there or see them off at the gate or drop them there. It was 2 years between them, but I remember doing it with each of them. And I always remember saying, make sure you find someone at school today that hasn't got a friend or something and say good day or just do something, because it makes a huge difference to them. It may not be anything to you, but just do it. And even they'd come home and I would say, did you? Or they'd even say, hey, I met this guy that this girl and she was sitting there doing, oh, great, And even there's an experience just the other day, Sophia, no, it wasn't her. It was someone came up to me randomly and said, your daughter... Oh, she helped my daughter out at school the other day. She was upset about something. She went over and I said, oh, really? And that came out of the blue, full circle from a stranger at the gym. And I went, oh, really? And I brought it up with Sophie. She said, oh, yeah. And, so, I mean, it's a weird thing. And whether that comes from that whole boarding school thing or... I don't know. Seeing a kid that's not fitting in or not, that's nothing that breaks your heart more than that. And how little someone can do can make it would be times 10 for that person. Oh yeah. They'll go home and say, "Hey, guess what happened at school today?" Was that, what I mean? And you can't just do it as a gimmick. You have to do it, real and believe it kind of thing. If you get in the habit of doing that, once you get older and you leave school, of course you have good times and bad times, you're going to fall out with people, etc. But I think if you've got that empathy going forward, it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on or anything, it's going to do well because who knows where we'll be in years to come. That's the only thing that you can take through. You can get degrees, you can get whatever, but it doesn't count for anything really. They're just,
Yep, I love the empathy. I think that it sits pretty much as a top value for us to all. Wherever we are, whatever we're doing, is to think empathetically. And I love the way that you kind of made it a thing.
Yeah, and they're both beautiful kids in that sense, and that's a lot for Mum as well.
Well, that was a real treat for me because I'm a big fan of Leigh Hart. I was trying to play it cool, but I just think he's hilarious. And it was so lovely to see and hear about the different sides, him as a businessman, as a dad, him as a young boy growing up, and how different life was. I totally forgotten about the whole strap at school, and I'm so glad that we have progressed further from that, and I don't have to worry about that at my kids' schools now. But I really enjoyed that chat.
So did I. I loved how he has navigated the kind of front-footing some stuff so the kids could kind of do their own lives, and going through a hard thing like a separation and a divorce. He still kept his eye on the kids and what they needed. So when they're at a ball or with their friends or whatever, he and Ange could be amongst it all and together and allow the kids to enjoy it and not be thinking, is Dad going to behave? What's the atmosphere going to be like? Really that sort of mature position that we can take as parents, even when things aren't ideal, we are holding it well for our kids.
Yeah, my parents separated when I was quite young, and I think that was always a hard tension that would have really helped for me years ago. I think parenting families, it is magic and it is messy. And here at Parenting Place, we would love to help. So do get in touch, parentingplace.nz.
Rover. Music, radio, podcasts.